Another Disney media player from the same person that sent me the DVD player in a previous video. Okay, so it's out of the shell. Took a while to get out. There's a lot of clips and screws and just kind of obnoxious, but I didn't even test it because the customer stated it wasn't working, but we could definitely plug it in and see if anything's happening. Plug in my fancy equipment here. Have it on a dim bulb current limiter. It is drawing 0 amps, so it is definitely dead. There's no standby circuit either. Yep. So I'll have to tear all of this down to get to the circuit board and maybe see if there's any bad capacitors or something happening. This portion is going to be a bit of a lecture going through the power schematic diagram. I was surprised that this was available online. I didn't get good footage of the troubleshooting because I was kind of guessing and checking, so would have been a very long video. But if we look here, this is where the power is coming in. We've got some filtering elements here. We've got the rectification diodes here along with the bulk caps. There's 2 of them here. Bulk caps are always going to be over the rectification voltage. So 170 about is where you'd be rectified for a 120 AC. So these are rated for 200. Some things you'll see 400 because they're 120, 240 dual rated. But we had 170 volts on these caps, so that was not the issue, or at least there was power getting here. These ESR could be a little bit too high, but they are just operating on mains voltage frequency, so they're not getting hammered as hard as the high frequency capacitors in the secondary. This is the primary coil here. When I measured it, I had 170, so the same voltage. So I knew that the primary wasn't running, right? I would have a voltage drop and I wouldn't have the full rectified voltage on this line. So if I have 170 here, that likely means that the main MOSFET is not switching, and I needed to find out why. My first guess was this Zener diode here. I was wondering if it was shorted. I lifted a leg out of circuit and measured it in diode mode. It appeared to be good, although I wasn't actually measuring its Zener operation, but at least it wasn't just a hard short. I next looked at these protection control circuits here, these little BGTs. This was sitting at 1 volt, even though this should be a half a volt. So that made me suspicious of this one. This measured normal, so it really wasn't a question, I think, if this was a problem. And then we had the photo coupler, the optocoupler here. Wasn't measuring what it should, but I think that makes sense. If the primary is not firing, I don't think it's going to get any power from this auxiliary coil here. So that was kind of my thought process there. After checking some other resistors here, I was just checking them in circuit, but they were measuring what they should have. So I kind of just looked at this MOSFET. I pulled out the MOSFET and measured it, and that's when I found that the gate to source was leaky. So this wasn't actually turning on and off like it should. Likely this was just having some current flow through the gate to source and just not actually operating as it should. And that makes sense. That's why we weren't seeing the switching and the voltage drop we should see on the primary coil. So that's my thought process and how I came about finding that the MOSFET was the culprit of the failure to power on. Here's the measurement of the MOSFET diode mode. We have gate, drain, source. Gate and source should not have any type of voltage drop, either forward or reverse, like this. That's not supposed to exist. You're supposed to have a reverse on the, see what, source to drain. That's normal, but this is not normal, having a drop. either way here. So that's definitely bad. So we've determined that this MOSFET's bad, right? If I measure from gate to source, there's a voltage drop. There shouldn't be one. I have one that I can replace it with that I pulled from a laptop charger, I think. I'm gonna pop it in. I gotta put in some thermal paste on the back. I've got that somewhere. I'll put it back in here and then solder it in. Fingers crossed. Minimal reassembly for testing purposes. I think everything's where it needs to be. Got the front panel plugged back in here. It's on a dim bulb tester with the new MOSFET in. See what happens. Oh! Something's doing something. Where's the power button? We have lights. I think we did it. Where's the open button? Oh, look at that. This thing hasn't worked in a long time, but look at that. That's awesome. More reassembling and testing, but that is very promising.